Mom said it's my turn to make a things I want to see in the game video. Has anyone actually made one of these recently? I have no clue. I'm not up to date with what the other Wuwa creators are doing since my YouTube feed has been nothing but Uma Musume, Pokemon Champions, and Jawstripe Haze for the past century. We are going into year 2 of Wuthering Waves, and I am currently out of ideas for videos to make aside from the gameplay showcases and a 2-year account review, which is currently 17 pages long and 8,000 words, and I'm not even. And since nearly every non-gameplay video I've done takes a long time to make. Oh, you think that 52-minute video of me talking about every character up to 2.8 was easy? I figured I'd do myself a favor and make a long-form video that requires a lot less effort to make. So here's a list of features and whatnot that I would like to see implemented into the game. 3 things to know before I start. 1. These ideas are not ranked in any particular order. Just because I have feature A listed before feature B does not mean I want feature A more than feature B, or vice versa. This is honestly just the order in which I wrote this down while waiting for my number at the DMV. Number 2, every single one of these will be nitpicks and or minor things. Tiny quality of life changes, so to speak. I won't be talking about things like removing the 50/50 from the game, or to optimize the game so that it can run at 200 frames on a 10-year-old phone, or letting players fly and use the bike anywhere in the world or anything like that. There is enough people talking about those things already, if Reddit is anything to go by, and I'm pretty sure that Kuro is already working on the big talking points that get brought up every single patch by the community. Instead, what I'm going to be talking about are things that I've either never or rarely seen talked about. And number 3, I have no idea how difficult the features on my list will be to implement into the game. Maybe what I'm asking for will need an entire development cycle with the entire team working on it to accomplish, or maybe it'll be something that a single engineer can do in an hour on their off day. Either way, I am not a game developer or designer or engineer, and I'm not really expecting what I'm asking for to actually be added into the game. But this is a wish list, so let me wish. Also, just saying, in the video where I talked about the goods and bads of 3.0, I said something about wanting more Persona 5 songs added into the game, specifically Rivers in the Desert. And guess what? Rivers was added into the game along with bike skins for both Makoto and Kasumi. Just saying.
Congratulations, you're a prophet.
Feature 1. Custom languages for characters. This game has so many characters with a bunch of talents behind each and every one of them. I'm not going to argue which voiceover language is the best, as that's honestly just a matter of personal preference. Whether you like the English dub, the Japanese, Korean, or Chinese, that isn't what this is about. What I'm talking about is being able to set different languages for different characters at the same time. For example, although I primarily play with the Japanese dub, since a few of my favorite voice actresses are in the game, such as Yu Asakawa, Shiwa Sato, and Hitomi Ueda, sometimes I just want to play in English just to listen to a few characters whose voices I really like, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. So what if players had the option to set certain characters to always speak in a certain language, while others would be speaking in a different language without having to swap out the entire language pack? For instance, Zani could be speaking English, Shangli could be speaking Chinese, Lene in Korean, and Chisa in Japanese. Would it make sense in-game for characters to be speaking different languages and yet being able to communicate? No, but if Tekken can do it, so can Wuthering Waves. Of course, this will most likely come with the caveat of having to download every single language pack you want to use, so players with limited storage space would not be able to utilize it, but that is a bridge to cross if we ever get to it. Number 2, this is most likely only going to be for PC players, specifically for those who have more than one monitor, But the forced mouse reset during loading screens or whenever a tutorial box pops up is something that I would be happy to see gone. There are so many times when I would launch the game, then I'll tab to my second monitor to do stuff like load up a different YouTube video, but then whenever I try to click on something, the game would just bring my mouse back to the center of my main monitor. So when I try to mouse back over to my second screen again, the game just brings my mouse back to the center of my main screen again and again and again, and I have no idea why this is even a thing. I'm guessing it's because while playing the game, the mouse isn't on the screen for most of the time as the mouse controls the camera, so keeping the mouse centered is how you wouldn't accidentally mouse off the game when swiping the camera around. However, if this feature of resetting the mouse during the loading screens went away and never returned, I'd be more than happy. Though knowing me and my luck, this would most likely become a monkey's paw and the mouse would be constantly visible and you'd be able to mouse off the game even though you're in full screen. Since we talked about a PC specific issue in the previous nitpick, let's talk about a universal one, which is number 3. Not having to relaunch the game every other time the game has an update or a patch. It's gotten to the point that every time the game has one of these little updates, I just click the update button and then just walk away to get a drink or something because there's a very good chance that the game will have to relaunch. Once again, I'm not an engineer nor a developer. I have no idea what could be causing it, nor do I have an idea that could be a potential fix. What I do know, however, is that as a consumer, it is not exactly consumer friendly. I don't think there's a single person out there who thinks, oh boy, I love having to launch the game a second time to play the game. Yes, I know that they added a change that lets the game relaunch itself on PC. That's not the point. The point is that the game shouldn't have to relaunch itself in the first place. Number 4, the global filter color settings staying constant even during cutscenes. This is one thing that just keeps throwing me off when playing the game. I have my global filter set to vivid at 4-4 and around 70 intensity, making the game a lot more vibrant. So when the game forcefully and temporarily resets the colors back to default, it is nearly impossible to miss. This was especially noticeable when I was collecting the solar seeds around the map and still is when playing through the MSQ. That said, I do understand why the game resets to default for cutscenes. Players can adjust the global filter settings so that the game is black and white like an old noir film, and I don't think the devs intended for the story to play out with that color scheme. To which I say, screw it. If the player wants to play through the game like an old noir film, or wants to put that yellow sepia tone to it like every single Hollywood movie that has a scene in Mexico or something, looking at you, Breaking Bad, I say let them. And if the player realizes that they messed up, then they can rewatch the cutscenes on YouTube or something. And speaking of rewatching cutscenes, number 5, let the player rewatch cutscenes in the actual game. This is probably the only mainstream thing on this list, and I'm only adding this here because I'm kind of running out of space with all of my OBS recordings. I tend to record my entire playthrough of the MSQ so that later, if I need footage from a certain cutscene or lines from dialogue, I can just source my own footage without having to use a YouTube to MP4 converter site that tends to horribly compress a video even though it's still in 1080p. The cutscenes are already in the game, just let us rewatch them. There are so many moments that I would want to watch again, whether it's to get some more B-roll or to refresh my memory or just for the sake of watching them again, but the only way I can do that is if I record the entire thing or go on YouTube. What's the point of the game being 131 gigabytes if we can't even rewatch the cutscenes? Number 6, let the other members of our team be visible in the overworld. Ever since I played Genshin's co-op mode all those years ago, I thought, man, seeing 3 other playable characters in my world at the same time is pretty cool. And it was a feature that I wished was in the game by default. Then, years later, Arknights Enfield released with this very feature, and now I'm just sitting here wishing that it was in Wuthering Waves as well. Journeying through the world while seeing the other members of your party beside you just makes the world feel so much more alive. Once again, I'm not a game dev nor am I an engineer, so I have no idea how difficult this would be to implement. However, this is not an impossible task, as if you play the forgotten game mode called co-op, you can see your friends in the same world as you. So, if the game engine can support 3 players at once, I'm pretty sure it can handle 2 more NPCs that tag alongside you. And if you want to play devil's advocate and say that co-op is different from having NPCs, let me remind you that the game straight up does this in the 3.2 MSQ with Sigrika and Chisa. I literally stood there and did nothing while the 2 of them cleared the room for me, and they went through their entire skill rotation to clear the mobs. But since having the other members of your team pulling a Jujutsu Kaisen and jumping a boss would obviously result in more DPS, I can see another wave of HP inflation coming, so maybe your teammates can just vanish into the ether and not be there during combat. That, or if they do remain in the world and continue to attack, maybe they can only do their basics at like 10% of the damage to compensate. Number 7. So you know how earlier I said something about the rankings not mattering and that just because something is listed first does not mean it's any more important and vice versa? Yep. Well, I lied because this one is the most important, and that is male Rover's ass in his new skin. Seriously, what did Kuro do to him? Why did they do this to him? That thing is flatter than Captain America's ass. I've seen more curves on a stick of uncooked spaghetti. Kuro, please, before you introduce a new element for Rover, fix his ass.